Hello, all. It's Ben Wheeler again. I'm joined today by Kit Sun Cheah. Hugo, what, were you nominated or did you win it? I think you won it, didn't you?
Nominated.
Uh, Hugo? Oh, there we go. I need to read the Kickstarter. I'm bad at this. Uh, Kit Sun Cheah, Singapore's first and greatest, as these things go, Hugo and Dragon Award nominated writer, author of the Dungeon Samurai trilogy, which was funded on Kickstarter and showed up, I think, twice on these streams in the far flung past. Now he's got a new project, Babylon Blues. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it, Kit?
Babylon Blues is a collection of six cyberpunk action horror stories set in the far future city of Babylon. It follows a team of six elite operators in a struggle against monsters, cultists, and the new gods. The city of Babylon is ruled by seven factions calling themselves the new gods. They want to control the entire city, entire country, and then the entire world. And for Team Blackwatch of the Special Task Section, their mission is to prevent that from happening. Their job is to hold the new gods and their followers accountable to the law, which in practice means they'll have to fight monsters, cultists, and other horrors day in and day out on the streets of Babylon. However, in doing so, they will make enemies of the new gods, leading to an epic confrontation at the finale of Babylon Blues.
Outstanding. That definitely lives up to its cyberpunk feel that you're advertising here. Let's see, it's a collection of, is it short stories?
Four short stories and two novellas.
Excellent. It's looking pretty good so far. You have funded it on Kickstarter, which is always an excellent experience, as well as looks like if we can reach 2,500, uh, we will get an art book. Is that right?
Yep.
Do you have an artist already in mind?
Yes, the same artist who created the promotional image.
That image that I've got up there for everyone. It's pretty good.
Yep.
Looks like you're going for a realistic battle attire rather than something super sci-fi. What sort of made you go for that kind of aesthetic?
Well, I grew up reading thrillers. It left a profound impression on me. And going beyond that, what I wanted to do was to accurately portray how real world special forces types will kit up, gear up, and go out into the field
Mm-hmm.
and apply it to a cyberpunk universe. So this I decided to go for a very realistic portrayal, right down to kit placements, radio placement, the kind of weapons they use, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
It's the sort of thing that these soldiers will pay attention to, and therefore it's something that my characters must pay attention to.
Of course. It's like trying to write a period piece. If you get the ruffles on the collar wrong, ooh, you'll never hear the end of
Oh yeah.
it. So, you've read a lot of thrillers. What's your favorite thrillers, and are you taking inspiration from them?
Hmm. For Babylon Blues, the most influential thriller I've read that affected it, that influenced it, was Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six. I read that when I was 13 years old, I think. And that's when I was introduced to the idea of an elite counter-terrorist unit, as well as the as fighting techniques that emphasize tactics, teamwork, gear, planning, all the sort of things that went into Babylon Blues itself.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, I've read other military thrillers like Dalton Fury's Colerainer series, which dives into the mindset of elite operation soldier. I mean, because you can't take a long view all the time, like in Rainbow Six. You
Right.
want to, yeah, you want to see how soldiers like this actually think and act, and why they do what they do, and what makes them spec ops as opposed to ordinary person. So I read books written by special forces guys, both fiction and memoirs, and I've also read other series by other authors to get a feel of how to write authentic action scenes while incorporating excellent prose style, such as Greg Hurwitz's Nowhere Man series.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that most thriller authors like Clancy or Delta Fury or Brad Taylor, while they're excellent at writing character mindsets, at gear, at discussing tactics and techniques and whatnot, their prose stuff is very bland. It's very workmanlike.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no character to it. So I read other authors that will help that with character in their works, with punch, with style. So I blended both of them for Babylon Blues.
And I really like the sound of that. Uh, I do get turned off quite a bit by even some pretty fine pulpy adventure stories when the prose is boring and samey, and it's like, here's the alien menace, here's the soldiers, and they go pew 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 pew, and they pew pewed this way, and they pew pewed that way, and then they flanked them, and as they say, flank and spank. So having that sort of a approach to it, um, it's you know it's I that's much more my speed. But of course, I know you keep action going pretty quick. So even though I might like the purple prose, you're not going to fall into that trap.
Well, what I wanted to do was to mix a bit of purple prose and fast-paced action with Babylon Blues.
Hmm.
And while I do appreciate purple prose when it works, it's just that in the stories I read, when I read action scenes that just slight details or that are just plain unrealistic, my brain
Yep.
just shuts off. It's like, oh, okay, whatever. Next page, next page, next page.
Right. And
Yeah, I mean, I
eventually,
skipped the entire manga.
yeah. And eventually,
I skipped the entire manga because of this.
outstanding. I do the same thing. Though usually I put down the book and just stop reading. I bought a 9-page thing about the Void Wraith series or something like that, and it starts out. I'm like, okay, this is all right, but then all of a sudden, like, they're trying to breach it, but they're just standing out in the open, and then like one dude just rushes forward for no reason, and like a whole, like, it's like, so you gave up cover, you're in space, so if you're just firing wildly into the dudes, you're gonna hole your own ship, and XYZ, and it's like, okay, at least I only spent 99 cents on a 9-book series. I'm certain that that was very valuable for the person publishing them, whatever his name was.
Ah, that. I saw on Amazon, I think. Good thing I didn't buy it.
Yeah. It's yeah. It's like I don't really get anything out of good tactics, but when it's like super dumb like that, I get taken out of it.
If a book calls itself military science fiction, it should at least pay attention to the military side of things, like tactics.
Absolutely. Or, discipline. Uh
Oh yeah.
well. So looking at your, there it is. I got a lot of tabs open right now. So you're starting off with a Let's see here. 5 stories. Black Watch. They're trying to take down the new gods. So do the new gods have powers, or are they just gang members? Or let's talk about them for a little bit.
The new gods are powerful entities that call themselves gods because they are the most powerful supernatural entities around. However, they don't normally show up in person. Instead, delegate powers to their worshippers. The most powerful of whom are called the elect. Regular believers, depending on the gods, you get various minor blessings, which isn't covered here, but basically goes something like, say, increased speed, accelerated healing, more energy, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the elect are the soldiers of the gods, and they're given the most powerful ones. This includes super fast regeneration, a berserker mode, hmm, transformation into various monsters and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So do you go for the body horror angle?
There is body horror, yes, a
Okay.
fair bit actually.
Hmm. Is it? Do you? So I. There's a Halloween movie thing going around, and they say that you can tell the quality of a werewolf film by the quality of the werewolf transformation. Because there's always these scenes where the werewolf takes 5 minutes to transform, and it's super gross. Do you go for that kind of thing, or do you go more for smoke and mirrors?
Hmm. It depends on what the story needs. But for
Okay.
Babylon Blues, it's usually the immediate rapid transformation seen in the public eye, as in on the page.
I get you. Well, I was just thinking of the body horror aspect, the granting of powers and whatnot. Because if you think about it, I live in a decently dangerous area of St. Louis, so it's like you hear about it, and it's like I don't know if I want my gangbanger to transform into a dragon or something. You know, it's it's not something I particularly relish hearing about.
Yeah. In this case, you've got gangsters can transform into a hybrid of vampires and werewolves.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. The strengths are both and none the weaknesses.
Oh boy. Because the sun was the only thing keeping the vampires in check. So, do these the Black Watch? Yes, that's their name. It is their name, right? The special. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I'm just skipping through your thing. Uh, oh yeah, Team Blackwatch. Do they have special weapons to take care of it? Powerful rail guns or anything like that?
Well, they're powerful by today's standards, but almost all of it is standard issue by their standards.
I getcha. So, do they pull out, these guns? Are they upgraded into? Hmm. Hmm.
Into monster killing devices.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of it because there's this book that I stopped reading because it was getting pretty boring. Like it was in the middle of an action scene and I found it boring. Where like they basically make psychic mechs to go and fight vampires. But the vampires are super OP. Personally, I didn't really think much of it because the psychic abilities were both broken and underused, which is possibly one of the worst possible combinations you can pull off as a writer. Like if you can extend your psychic ability and you can transform it into a sword, there's just nothing stopping you from extending that, just cutting off the monster's head. If the psychic abilities can do damage. Um,
Mhm.
which is, like I know some people might be like, Ben, it's just entertainment, but Ben, Scare Bear, Ben. But it's no, it's a serious like thought process. that goes
Mm.
into it. I'm sure you've put a ton of thought into this. Like, if they turn into super vampires, like what are you going to, like, can you just pour enough bullets into them to kill them, or is it, something special?
Well, you need to shoot them a lot of times.
Oh,
In one scene, I have a character who has to shoot a vampire something like he's empty half a magazine to the vampire before he fires down.
hmm,
And that's half a magazine of high powered rifle rounds. The kind that in our world would be powerful enough to destroy armor.
yeah. I was picking up that vibe. That's fantastic. But they're using their tactics, right?
Yep.
Outstanding. So we talked a little bit about inspiration. You're setting it in Babylon, I believe, Nova Babylonia. I believe, ooh, maybe even last year or beginning of this year. You talked about setting a cyberpunk story in Singapore. Is this what you were talking about?
Oh no, that's another series altogether.
Ah, I getcha. Or is this kind of a test bed for that series, looking at the ideas you're going to deliver later on?
Oh, sorta, kinda. Mostly wanted to see if I could cyberpunk aesthetic.
Mm-hmm. Are you enjoying it?
Oh yes, a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah. What did you take for your inspiration of cyberpunk?
You mean cyberpunk fiction proper?
Yeah. Like what do you take it, and like if we're tracing the thoughts behind Babylon Blues, what sort of path did you take?
My first major exposure to cyberpunk was Ghost in the Shell back in the late 90s. The first anime movie. After that, with Ghost in the Shell, I looked at the technology, the action scenes mixed with the philosophical minds concepts, the general aesthetics of Hong and architecture of Hong Kong slash Japan. And Ghost in the Shell came the standalone complex anime series, both seasons. That was the primary inspiration. And other secondary inspirations include Blade Runner, the
Hmm.
original, Neuromancer by William Gibson, the Shadowrun series, and Psychopaths, the anime series. A little bit less Psychopaths for this one.
Yeah. I uh I, I haven't watched Psychopaths in a long time, but that was a pretty good series. Probably the newest. I don't know how old Shadowrun is, but it's probably Psychopaths is probably the newest thing on that list, and that's classics all. Um, let's see here. Host, you either have low gain or you're sitting away from your mic. Ditto for the guest. Let's turn me up a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Eh,
Okay.
Wooly Ram, a regular, says hello. He says you should try the sanctified silver beads embedded in the projectile, armor soaked with holy incense, holy water, and salinated with blessed salt. But I think that's overkill, uh, unless your vampires don't follow the holy relics rules.
This is a world that's forgotten all the old faiths. These vampires don't respect them anymore. At least until they see the Yuri Yamamoto do his thing.
I getcha.
But the overall concept of this series is that the new gods are so powerful they've replaced all the culture of the old, old religions are gone, or at least relegated to the forgotten corners of the world. In this world, if you tell someone Christianity, they just look at you and ask, "What's Christianity?" They won't recognize the cross when they see it. They're characters who haven't even heard of the Bible. So in such a setting, it wouldn't make sense for a vampire to be frightened at the sight of a cross. but it will be frightened at the power behind the cross
Of course.
if it can be brought out.
Hmm. Fantastic. That is a pretty interesting thing. Like, if the vampire is like a viral infection that transforms a man, like that, the sign of the cross and all that jazz wouldn't do much for him anyway. But if it's a supernatural thing, that's when the power behind the cross, the cross itself, really comes into play.
Yep.
I do like that. Let's see. How did Dungeon Samurai go for you?
It went pretty well.
Is it
We
finished
hit,
now? Oh, sorry.
yep, yep. We hit all the funding goals. It's published on Amazon. Sales were better than expected.
I'm glad to hear that. Uh, all three books are out, so it's did you did they survive to the end? The main character, did he fight his kamikaze fate?
Yep.
Excellent. That warms the cockles of my heart. Uh, Woolly Ram says the power of autism compels you. In the name of pedantic accuracy, I abjure you. And it's like, yeah, it's about right. Uh,
Oh yeah.
oh yeah. So with Babylon Blues funded, which is always a reason to celebrate, what are you going to work on after this?
I've got a cyberpunk series coming up. A separate universe from Babylon Blues. It's set in our world, but in the 22nd century. And this project is titled Singularity Sunrise. It's posits that the singularity has finally arrived in the form of a sapient artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
But the arrival of this AI sparks a war between people who use technology to empower people and those who use it to oppress them. That is between China and the West, the free West.
Right.
So this series follows the AI's industry attempts to understand humanity and to survive Chinese attempts at destroying it. And a contractor who psychic powers place him outside humanity, the mainstream, and may well be the only person who can humanize the AI, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And so it's the journey of the AI that reminds me somewhat of Chappie and a few other like Johnny Five, a few other like robot becomes sentient, goes on adventures sort of uh I don't know what you'd call them. Media,
Mm.
movies, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Hmm. So you're going for that cyberpunk feel. You're setting it in Singapore, as you mentioned earlier. Uh,
No, no, no.
no, not Singapore.
The, the Cyberpunk Singapore series is yet another series separate from this one.
Ah, I like it. It's always something with the Pulp Rev guys, and I love it. Uh, so are you setting it in America or in China? The first one.
It, hmm, this series it covers half the world. They said there are stories in America, in Europe, in West Africa, and China.
Mm-hmm. Does G become the immortal emperor, ruling from? I'm just saying. Uh, the China memes disappeared all too soon. But that's okay.
Mhm.
Can't have everything you want in the meme world. We have to just be satisfied with Epstein not killing himself. Actually, I saw a funny thing where this college student was being interviewed at a Trump rally. So it sounds normal. It's like, so what do you like about Trump? Well, I like, is this. He has a very hard stance, and Epstein didn't kill himself. And it was very funny, just like straight delivery. No, like they couldn't comment on it, but the poor news reporter looked so awkward. It's like, please, no, no, don't bully me.
You never see that in Singapore.
Right. Let's see here. Woolly Ram has some questions for you. What elements of cyberpunk are you using? High tech or high tech, low life? Style over substance? The flesh is weak or psychosis?
The most important one is high tech life. Two of the new gods are very technologically oriented. One of them is the Singularity Network, which is trying to create its own machine god. The other, the Seekers of the Way, which is represents the alliance of the corporations and the
People
governments.
listed.
They believe that they can achieve transcendence through technology.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work that way. In the case of Singularity Network, they basically themselves into soulless monsters who have left their humanity behind. I don't, when they show up, I want there to be something off about them.
Right.
Like they're not quite human, that they're not quite thinking the way a human would do. They're too rational, they're too focused on results, and don't care how they achieve them or what others would think about them.
So human life doesn't mean much to them, and I suppose they wouldn't mind even destroying a city if it meant achieving their goals.
Yep.
Outstanding. So when you say for techno low life, sorry, high tech low life, uh, do you mean like sort of the city as if it's the jungle, or are you going to go for like sort of everyone rigidly in their place?
Both, actually.
So there's going to be like, are you going to have different levels to it, or are you just going to have it all kind of just merged together?
Mm. One try to go for the city and the chaos. And at the same time, everyone within each faction role and positions.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, the new gods are all at each other's throats. They'll do everything it takes to dominate each other. So thus you have the city as a jungle. As for roles and positions, the new gods but the STS is the police officer, the law enforcers, and it's really only so much they can do, even with the leeway and authority they do have. They can't, for example, go rogue and start hitting the new gods because they feel like it, no other consequences. They
Mm.
can't if the superior says they have to do something, then they do have to do it, unless they find a way to work around it. That's all. So in a sense, the rules only apply to the good guys. The social structures, hierarchies, and so on. Only the protagonists are bound by them. The new gods not so much.
Absolutely. So do the hmm, I'm starting to get a pretty good vision of this place. So when you decided to go for Nova Babylonia, is that more in the sense of location, or is it like you're going to bring all the races of man in one area, or is it an empire?
I see it as a continent where all the races of men have been thrown together. In the backstory, the new gods arrived and rearranged the entire world. And doing so, they smashed together peoples of different races and cultures together. And in the case of Nova Babylonia, pretty much everybody from everywhere got thrown into the same land.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Western, yeah, but Well, you have Europeans, you have Japanese, you have Arabs, you have Chinese, and whatnot, all in the same city,
Mm,
trying somehow to find a way to coexist.
right. And so they're all stuck in this one city in this one place with the new gods rolling over them, as well as with their henchmen rolling over them. Just wondered if you were going for the Babel metaphor, uh, which you are sort of. Except they're not really one people. It's more like they're all separate areas. So I assume you'll have the various quarters of the city, with like the Arab quarter, the Chinatown, that sort of thing. Um, which could lead to some pretty interesting chase scenes or fight scenes if the
Yep,
architecture changes as well.
yep.
Fantastic.
There is a Yeah, there are multiple quarters in the city. Some of them are divided amongst the new gods, others are still up for grabs. In Babylon, I have a place modeled on Chinatown. There's a high-tech sector. There's the equivalent of Akihabara even.
Ooh, I do like that. Are you going to have it like the new gods are kind of like pushing upward while the government is going to be cracking down on people? Is it going to be a benevolent government, a malevolent government?
It's going to be complex.
I get you.
The new gods want to rule the land as an official slash as official government. And in the areas they do control, they are the government. But that said, they let the human government pretend that it is still in charge because it's legal convenience. Because they don't want everybody else to think that this god or that god actually rules the town, the country. As for the government itself, the relationship with the new gods is rather delicate. They officially rule the country, but only because the new gods allow them to, which means that they have to form alliances with all the new gods to keep everyone happy, which means that they have to do favors with new gods. At the same time, though, they don't want to be seen as patronizing one particular faction too much, or for fear of being targeted. So in addition to maintaining ties with all the gods, they also have to play all the gods against each other.
I love it.
Yeah, and that's the setup for the series. Partway through the series, you'll see how that plays out.
Right. And that's always a lot of fun in itself. Admittedly, I don't do intrigue very well, or much at all. But I can see how if it's like you've got 9 or however many, super powered entities running around, it's like we don't want to fight because it'll be like nuclear bombs going off all the time. But if some of their followers kill each other off, that's not such a bad thing, guys.
Yep.
I find that interesting. So the new gods don't work together as a single group. They're all independent, but kind of in their own pantheon.
Yeah. Well, as I said before, it's complicated. Okay. Well, the new gods officially tolerate each other.
Yes.
Sometimes they even collaborate with each other on projects of mutual interest.
Hmm.
There's this faction called the Pantheon, which isn't so much a single god, but an alliance of minor gods, so powerful that an alliance of so many minor gods that's so powerful they can rival anyone.
Hmm.
At the same, you see, all these factions though they all have their own agenda, and they will prioritize their own agendas over everybody else. So one day they'll be working for with each other. Next day they could betray each other. The day after that they'll work with someone else, and so on
Hmm.
and so forth. We are always at war with East Asia.
Right, right. Except when we're at war with Eurasia, you see. Uh,
Yeah,
I get you. Wooly Ram
yeah.
says, sounds like politicians are more like pagan priests, which is an interesting idea. Um, just to play around with it, if you do have these guys who do interact fairly regularly with the world, and you have to keep them in balance, I'm sure that there's like translators or priests or something like that that have to be uh, on staff to mollify them or to contact them or whatever you have.
mm,
Unless that you know you could just call them up. I mean, you could do
yeah.
that. Wouldn't be very cool or godly for them, but it's like
Hmm.
what is it? It's like Hades in a suit works, but if you're calling up Hades and saying, "Hey, what's up, my boy? Let's hit the bars," it's it ruins the experience of godhood.
Indeed.
Which is kind of what you're going for anyway.
Yeah. So in Babylon, the human government does have like gods, but they don't show up on the page yet. The new gods at the same time have their own liaison with the government and the population. They are called the speakers of the new gods, and their functions are crossed between a priest, an ambassador, and an elected minister. So they're leaders of the communities. They interface with governments. They attempt to negotiate with the other factions and the government as well. And they're all diplomatic immunity. Well, technically ecclesiastical privileges, but it translates to diplomatic immunity. So even if they commit a crime, it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to have them arrested and punished.
hmm So I dig it. That's I like it. So with let's go back to Team Blackwatch. So we have let's see here. There we go. Meet the Blackwatch. Kareem Mustafa is the newest recruit in the Special Task Section assigned to Team Blackwatch. He is immediately thrown into a high risk search and destroy operation. In a night of fire and thunder, he must prove himself worthy to his fellow operators. But first, he must survive. Are you going for following one character? It looks like you're following a couple of different characters, or is it just from his perspective?
Each story follows a different character. So in the Black Watch, it follows Karim Mustafa. In the Green Bliss, it follows James Wood. In Red River, you have Will Connor. The Golden Mouse follows Zentan. And Babylon Blues follows Kayla Fox.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is that each story lets them show off their strengths, exposes their weakness, and explores their relationship with the team leader, Yuri Yamamoto.
Mm-hmm. And is I gotcha. So with it, you have a variety of settings. Each one has a strength, a weakness. Are you going for each one having a specific theme as well, or an arc, or is it just whatever the story needs?
A bit of both.
Mm,
I do have character arcs planned for you. It's just that it's very hard to pull off an arc in just one story. Yeah?
yeah.
Yeah. So, for example, Kai Mustafa, he's a team rookie. He's also an elect of a god, a minor god.
Mm,
So, to prove himself, he must demonstrate that A, he's committed the mission, B, his god will support the mission, and C, he won't turn on his fellow operators, even if he transforms into into a powerful werewolf. Yeah.
I like it. Uh, it does sound pretty good. The one that's caught my eye is let's see, where is it? The Golden Mile, suspended after
Mhm.
the events of the Red River. Team Blackwatch goes off the grid. But when cybernetics specialist Zen Tanner sees a cry for help, the team reassembles. To save an innocent soul, the Blackwatch must storm the stronghold of the Void Collective and come face to face with the true nature of the all consuming void. and this time there is no one coming to back them up. It looks like this one is uh, available on your website. Is that right?
Yep.
I'll post a link to that. That one's the one that I'm just reading through the descriptions. That's the one that's interesting me the most. They all sound pretty good. For a non-military sci-fi, even though I read a decent amount of military sci-fi, like I don't seek it out. It's not my it's not. I don't know. People don't really write what I want, which is probably things that don't sell. So,
I get it. Yes. I feel like the same for me too.
right,
I mean, they write the aesthetic, they write the genre, but they don't write exactly what I want.
right. So it's like we have to write what we want, and it's it comes out pretty good, but
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty nice. Let's see here. So talk about the Void Collective. Is that a New Gods group or something else?
Yep. The Void Collective is one of the new gods. They are a group of cultists who seek officially seek enlightenment through the
Mm-hmm.
in practice it's a hive mind under the control of the void.
And the Void is one of the New Gods.
Yep. They say the
Outstanding.
void is empty. Yeah. They say the void is empty, but it is full. But full of what exactly the team will find.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Uh, the idea of hive minds with modern people, not like so you have aliens and the aliens have a hive mind, like bugs or something. Usually it's bugs. But when you have like individuals devolving into the hive mind, I've only really seen that, well, not devolve, I guess, being embraced by the hive mind. I've only really seen that with John C. Wright's uh, Golden Age series from a while ago with the Elysium. Uh, I can't remember. He had all kinds of crazy names for his stuff, so it's kind of hard. But basically, it was like a huge population of the world was a part of this collective. Sometimes you can come out of it, but if you're in there for too long, you're kind of just there forever because your personality isn't separate anymore. Um, Not that you would ever want to leave, you see, but you know. And so they act as one, and they have various people who show up, but it's all with one will and one idea. I do have a joke that all Bens are basically the same.
Hmm.
Uh, like I've yet to meet a Ben that's kind of outside the mold of of kind of what like interested in like there's always an obsession. There's always like this joviality and friendliness. There's always this like seriousness but not seriousness. It's one of those weird things where it's like you can laugh and joke about stuff. There's the obsession in our cases, like writing and other things like that. And then, like, usually there's a favorite alcohol as well, like a specific favorite alcohol. I don't know if that's true for you, though.
Hmm. I don't drink.
Right. So it's like you're the first one to break the alcohol mold. And I've already gone through a substantial amount of bends in the city of St. Louis. So it's pretty impressive. But we could say all Bens have a hive mind, but it's not quite the same. Oh well, it's that is what it is. I do like the idea of a god with a hive mind of people, which means that they've got a lot of bodies that they can just throw in without much of a problem. Is that right?
Yeah. And that's exactly what happens. The team has to fight their way through a through a swarm of enemies coming from every direction.
Perfect. And I did like the hive mind idea. It's like, well, they just killed one of us, and it's like, why are you guys freaking out? We just, trimmed a toenail, the equivalent. But it's like, I don't think a hive mind would be cavalier about their bodies. Like they would in the sense of war and stuff like that. But in the practical sense, I don't think they would have the same lack of empathy as they're usually portrayed as having.
Mm-hmm. They are very empathetic, only towards each other.
Yeah, it's true enough. It's true enough. Hmm.
In the case of the Golden Mile, if you kill just one of them, everyone will know where you are,
Yeah,
and then they'll come for you.
right.
Yeah, you can't run from them.
Right. But there's still like so many of them. Don't
Yeah.
even know.
Mm-hmm. There's something like 10,000 people in our college.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can't just so you really can't kill your way through it. You just don't have ammo. At the
Right.
same time, you can't run away either because you're blocked. So, what to do, eh?
Right. You have to get to your goal before they get to you. It sounds like.
Yep.
I love it. Let's see. You have been posting these for a bit. Are the two novellas going to be completely new?
There's one new novella.
Excellent.
That's the White Cross.
Right.
The other novella is Babylon Blues, and that one's complete.
Ah, excellent. Yeah. I was just sort of looking through your Kickstarter again. I'm always interested in how people do their Kickstarters. Personally, I'm more of an Indiegogo fan, but who knows what'll happen to them in the future. I've heard some people say that Kickstarter. I think you said it actually. I have said it in the past anyway. Um, that Kickstarter is better for books.
Yeah. For some reason, people who buy books tend to congregate around Kickstarter project rather than Indiegogo.
Yeah, I think what we're coming to with Indiegogo is that there was a lot of like, I want to say, I'll get to that in a second, Willie Ram. Uh, the Indiegogo is kind of losing steam with it because it used to be you just post anything up there, people would follow it if you had a decent, if somebody retweeted you or something like that. But it seems to be slowing down a bit compared to what it used to be. But Kickstarter will just last forever. And plus, who knows how Vox Day's lawsuit will end up with Indiegogo. Wooly Ram says the SJW hive mind is psychopathically empathic. I I can agree with that. I can agree with that. Though it's like it's hive mind until there's a bull, and then it's a bull in a china shop, because it's like they don't actually fight one on one. From the videos I've seen, they usually retreat or go for the sneak attack. And if you catch them in the sneak attack, they start begging, and it's like, oh, please, no, please, it was just a joke, man. It was just a prank, bro. So it's like, okay, all right. Uh, and then of course they never think of any consequences. I think the difference between an SJW like hive mind and a actual hive mind is that all of the individuals of the SJW hive mind are so self wrapped up, so narcissistic, whatever you want to call it. They believe no consequence will happen to them, just the other guy. whereas a hive mind doesn't care what happens to them, but cares what happens to the other guy.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a it's an interesting thought because it's like with the sci-fi thing, we would have to develop not like a hive mind or whatever, but a sort of some way for us all to communicate faster than light, or at least keep humans. Ooh, excuse me. Keep humans from devolving from each other too drastically. Uh, Otherwise, we won't recognize each other a million years on.
Hmm.
Just something to keep the cultures from going too crazy, I guess. But you know what? That's probably not something within our natural lifetimes anyway, unless they suddenly develop faster than light travel. Wooly Ram asks, "Did the Void Collective start out as a hacker group?"
Nope. It began as
Ah,
a cult dedicated to worshiping the void, and it grew and grew and grew.
and they get their own arcology, they get their own this and that. Mm,
Well, to be fair, all the other new gods have arcologies and tech as well.
that's true enough. I mean, I'm sure there's some sort of arms race between them.
Oh, can you repeat that?
I suppose there's an arms race between the various factions.
Oh yeah, and all the factions have their own abilities and powers as well.
I like it. Well, Kit, we've been talking for about 50 minutes to an hour. I really like what you're doing here with Babylon Blues. I will support,
Thank
certainly
you.
for the ebook. That's usually what I get when I like the series, or at least the ideas behind them. And of course, I haven't been reading all of them, but I've been following you on your blog or the Pulp Rev blog when it was active, and I've just kind of enjoyed talking to you. Um,
Same here.
yeah. Do you have any final words for us today?
Well, if you like sci-fi action horror with a techno aesthetic and a Christian twist, back Babylon Blues now.
Outstanding. And I certainly will. Have a good one, Benjamin.
Thanks. You too.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.